Hi, Jem here. Just popping in to apologise for any sound issues you may hear in today's episode, such as faint ghost-like talking in the background and some wonky volume. We discovered some technical issues after we had recorded. Please remember we're still very new, and while I have tried my best to rectify the issues, there may still be some in the recording. Thank you. I hope you enjoy the episode. Banging and shouting startled Marium Abbas awake in the early hours of Friday the 13th of September 2024. She lay there for a few moments, half asleep, trying to understand where the noise was coming from. It seemed to be from the flat directly above her own. Fear gripped her upon hearing a weird voice the likes of which she had, quote, never heard, never experienced, end quote, in her life before. Getting out of her bed and going out of her front door, she found another neighbour on their shared landing. They too had been awoken by the goings-on above and had come to investigate. Hi, I'm Jem.
And I'm Victoria.
And we are on episode 3!
Episode 3 of The Criminal Crack. I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either, but it's really exciting. But I do wonder when we're going to stop telling people what episode number we're on.
I know. I think some people might not want to listen in order as well, so we might have to just mix it up a bit. But we could just tell you this is episode 27.
Even though it's episode 30.
Ah,
that would be dastardly.
Dastardly.
We'd like to say a massive thank you for the support we've had since episode 1, which was only a week ago.
Yeah, it only went live for you guys a week ago. And it's just done so well. I can't believe how many of you have listened. We've just filmed a little celebratory video for you in the garden, which was funny because Gemma's a tool. No, she's a very, very, very clever girl.
I am.
But for the first video, she thought it would be to film without the microphone on.
And I said some really, really deep and profound things.
It was Oscar-worthy. It was the most... If there was anything that could prove to you just how clever Gemma is, it was the words that she said in those moments.
They came from the heart. And birds stopped tweeting and just watched and listened because we were outside.
They fell from the sky.
I was going to say that, but it sounds...
Why do birds suddenly appear?
Every time I am near. Oh, that makes me think of Open Season 2. Brilliant film. I wanted to say something I've forgotten. Oh, we are recording in advance at the moment because we want to make sure that we've definitely got content out on time. But when we get in a rhythm, I think I've spoken her into
profound. She has talkated me into
weekly episodes, hopefully.
Potentially. I said I would like to get enough in the bag so that we can so that it doesn't become a chore, so that we still enjoy it, and also we've got enough good content to bring you. We don't want to do a half-assed job, so...
We don't. We want to use our full arse for every single episode.
Waboof.
So, I'm just going to tell you something. This episode is going to be a long one, so buckle up. I did think about making it a two-parter and releasing the second part the day after the first one, but I think I've managed to get it all in. It's a tough one, a really tough one to hear. It includes murder, child murder, discussion of sexual assault and of possible mental illness. When I'm editing, I'm going to give you a trigger warning at one certain point, and when I'm editing, I'll try and take note of the time that is, so that I can put some notes later in the Spotify little bit, so you can tune out and tune back in if you want to. I will be sharing everything in a respectful and factual way, and this respect obviously extends to you guys. I'll not be giving details in a salacious way, it's not really what I do, so please don't worry about that. All our sources will be shared to Facebook for you, and I'd like to point out that when the perpetrator was caught, he talked a lot. So loads of what I'm sharing today is first hand.
I'm really interested.
I think you will know this case. I definitely think people listening might know of the case, but if they're like me and I'm really into true crime, I learned a lot.
So tell me, what's the crack, Gemma?
Well, Victoria, today I'm going to share with you the murders of Juliana, Kyle and Giselle Prosper. Ringing any bells?
No, not at the moment.
Okie dokie. So just a heads up, some of the information that I have on the victims in this case has been translated from Spanish into English. And I used Google Translate. I hope I used it properly, but if you notice any mistakes in my interpretation, then please feel free to reach out and let me know.
And blame Google Translate.
You know what it makes me think of? You know, you get, I'm a like meme or meme queen. I don't know what I'm supposed to say, if it's a meme or a meme. Meme doesn't sit right with me, but meme's not right apparently. But anyway, you know the ones
Mimi.
where it's like something like, it'll be a t-shirt and it's got like Chinese writing or something.
Oh, yeah.
But when you translate it back, or if somebody who doesn't know the language that they're translating and it's something just really ridiculous.
Like, why have you got petrol on your arm or something?
Yeah, it makes me lol.
I had to, when I worked in Greece when I was younger, in my youth, I offered to translate a menu for a bar out there that did food, and they made jacket potatoes, like baked potatoes.
Oh no.
And apparently I translated it into literally cooked potatoes. So, at least it wasn't shirt potatoes, I suppose, but
Coat potato sounds nice.
It does.
Potatoes. Juliana Falcone was born in the coastal city of Mar del Plata in the Buenos Aires province of Argentina in 1976. And according to the local newspaper in her region, La Capital, Juliana went to her local elementary school, then on to a secondary school which specialised in the arts. It's called the Polyvalent Institute of Arts, and it looks really cool because I had a nosy on Facebook. I think they've just celebrated 50 years.
Oh, that's cool.
I might have made that up. At age 20, she made a brave move by leaving her homeland and travelled all the way to England, which became her home for the next 20 years. Sorry, that's the chair, if you remember from episode 1, it farts. She is said to have had a natural aptitude for languages, meaning that she picked up English very quickly and assimilated into the local culture so well that people actually thought she was born and bred UK.
Oh, wow.
But she must have been really good at languages.
I do think sometimes it's shameful how ignorant British people are with languages, because you go to Europe and they all speak English, but it's very clever.
And some of their languages, I did French and German at school, and I loved languages. And now the only thing I can really remember in German is a song, which I'm not going to start because my ADHD will make me sing the entire thing, but it's about just different foods. And when I worked at Long Tall Sally in Edinburgh, the Tall Club, which is a real thing, came to visit us in the store, and there were some German people, and I just burst into song, and while they stood there and just looked at me.
I remember somebody, a German couple, asking me where the bus stop was in German, and I responded in German without a second thought, and surprised myself so much that I actually went, oh. I remembered that, I retained that information, that very important information.
During Juliana's early years in the UK, she met and married Ray Prosper, and the couple went on to have 4 children. There's not a huge amount of information really regarding anybody in this case, but specifically the children, but I'm going to share what I have. First came Nicholas, then Kyle, then Giselle, who were aged 18, 16 and 13 respectively at the time of the atrocities we will be talking about today. I haven't found out much about the 4th child, but I'm thinking that they're probably underage and their name's not been released. They weren't involved in what happened, and maybe they were living with Ray at the time of the incident. Because from what I can see, Ray and Juliana were no longer together. So maybe, I know that everything says she was a single parent to 3 children, so maybe the 4th child lived with Ray. Juliana was also a volunteer at the Keach Hospice, a local charity for all ages offering end-of-life care, which from reading the website, I think that's quite unusual for it to be a mix of ages in a hospice. I don't know, you might correct me on that.
Yeah, it sounds unusual, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it sounds unusual to me.
Juliana, who was known to be patient and empathetic, loved her role there. She was loved by staff and the patients, and as well as volunteering, she was also part of the hospice fundraising team called the Gamble Girls, which was named after Ed Gamble, but not the Ed Gamble you're thinking of. This was a guy who was a patient and had actually passed away at Keach House. I think on the website it said he maybe had a brain tumour. In her spare time, though I doubt she had much of it, she was a keen athlete, particularly enjoying running, and she was known by many to put other people's needs and feelings before her own, and none more so than her children. They were her true passion in life, and it was obvious they were in her entire world. I will tell you about Nicholas shortly, but let me tell you what I know about his siblings first. So, 16-year-old Kyle was a pupil at the Cardinal Newman Catholic School on Warden Hill, Luton. He appears to have had a steady group of friends, he was popular, and he was really into sports and was known to be quite funny. At the time of her death, Giselle was a year 9 pupil. So what age did I say she was 13? I don't really understand the English school system, so I'm just going to hope that I got year 9 right, at the Lee Manor High School on Northwell Drive in Luton. Statements by the school described her as, quote, a beautiful soul, a model pupil, and someone who excelled in the subjects she took. Other comments shared about her were that she was popular amongst her peers, was very bright, and had an infectious smile. On Thursday the 12th of September 2024, she, meaning Juliana, Kyle and Giselle said goodnight to each other and headed to bed in their 8th floor home in the middle block of 3 14-storey towers on Walloods Bank Drive in Luton, little knowing that this would be the last time they would ever be saying goodnight to anyone. Nicholas too was in his room in the family home, but he wasn't there to go to sleep. And before I go into what he was doing, I want to go back in time and share with you a bit about Nicholas's life so you can see how things maybe occurred later in the episode. I'm going to jump about the timeline a little bit, so hopefully you can keep up, and if not, I'm sure Victoria will flag if she's not clear on anything. So as I said previously, Nicholas was the first-born son of Ray and Juliana Prosper. He arrived on the 18th of December 2005, and as he grew up, he was known to be a shy, quiet boy, though he did have a small group of friends who all shared his keen interest in computers. When it came time for him to be enrolled in school, his parents chose St Joseph's Catholic Primary School in Luton, where it was said he settled in well. By the time Nicholas was 16 and was in sixth form, his teachers began to realise that he'd become quite isolated. He no longer appeared to have a group of friends and was becoming more and more insular. So teachers met with Juliana and Ray about this and mentioned the possibility that he might be on the autism spectrum. After the meeting, they relayed this information to their son, but unfortunately he refused to see a GP or accept any support or help, even though it was clear he was struggling. Following on from this, his mum and dad again spoke to the school as they had more concerns about him, and at this point they were getting extremely concerned about his mental health. Though we don't have any more details on these concerns, I wonder if this was because Nicholas was pulling away from them and preferred to be alone than with them or other family members. That's always a worry, isn't it?
It is.
I'm sure most parents in this situation would be sad and worried for their child and want to do more, but from what we know now, I'm guessing he was far beyond accepting any help, as for the last year he'd been making terrifying plans.
Can be a sign of depression, can't it, when you isolate and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Some people are quiet and want to spend time on their own and they're just happy that way, but for some people there's more to it.
There's more, yeah.
So we're going to go back again to Friday the 13th. During the hours of midnight and 5 a.m, while his family slept, Nicholas was very busy indeed. In between watching what has been described as, quote, extremely violent and graphic animated pornography, he was online conducting more research and finalising plans for the rest of his day. Now from here on in, I'm going to be referring to Nicholas only as Prosper, as this is how he's identified in most sources I've used. And as you're aware from when I started talking, a lot of this information comes straight from the horse's mouth. Now, these daily plans he was making were not the plans of a typical 18-year-old. In fact, they were far from it. So, typical 18-year-old, what were we doing at 18?
Oh, don't ask me that. What was I doing at 18?
I worked at Asda.
I
was in Edinburgh.
At Anne Summers.
At 18?
I think so.
I'd have been terrified to work somewhere like that at 18.
Yeah. I went from Anne Summers to the prison to work. I didn't get arrested.
That's what she said. These plans were not to be the plans of a typical 18-year-old. Nicholas was preparing to murder his mother, his younger brother, and then his little sister, while each of them slept. However, familicide was not enough for him. This was only the initial stage of his 3-part plan. Now, just a little factoid for you. Familicide is only, you can use that word only if one of the parents at least has been killed. If he killed his siblings but not a parent, it wouldn't be familicide.
Okay, and if it's just the parents, it's patricide.
Yeah.
Yeah, with you.
Originally, when the second part of the plan was discovered by those investigating this case, the information was not going to be released to the public. However, this decision was later changed and is why we now have access to the following. Investigators learned Prosper was obsessed with school shootings. And according to a statement later made to Sky News by Detective Chief Inspector Sam Canna of Bedfordshire Police, Prosper, quote, had researched all school shootings across the world in the last 15 to 20 years. And when I say researched, he was meticulous in detail. This would include, of course, the most lethal mass shooting in British history, which took place in the small town of Dunblane in Perthshire. This tragedy happened on March the 13th, 1996, and while I'm not going to go into the full details of what happened within the local primary school that day, I will share that a school teacher and pupils, 18 people in total, lost their lives that day, with a further 15 being injured at the hands of a gunman who terrorised the whole school before taking his own life too.
Last time I ever remember a news story making me cry, other than the whales that were trapped in the ice when we were little, but that really, I couldn't get my head around those innocent children. I couldn't do it.
But the case that fascinated Prosper the most, and in fact became his main motivation for his plan, was the Sandy Hook Elementary shooting in Newtown, I don't know if it's Newtown, Fairfield County in the state of Connecticut in the United States. On the 14th of December 2012, this school became the scene of what can only be described as a massacre. Now, a quick sidebar, I'm not naming either of the perpetrators in this case, or the one before, as I don't believe they deserve to have their names mentioned, but the people who do deserve will be named at the end of this episode, and I'm going to get Victoria to read out some of them. As in Dunblane, a shooter entered Sandy Hook on this day and shot and killed 26 people. These innocent victims were 20 6 to 7-year-old children and 6 members of school staff. The gunman then killed himself when first responders began to arrive. Prior to arriving at the elementary school, the shooter had also gunned down his own mother. Prosper, it would seem, was particularly fascinated by Sandy Hook, or more specifically the shooter. He wanted to emulate this person's actions but on a bigger scale. Later, DC Kana would share that Prosper had said that he wanted, quote, to be known as being responsible for the biggest school shooting on record. His aim was to take the lives of at least 30 people, starting with his family and followed by staff and pupils at his old school, St. Joseph's Catholic Primary School, on Gardenia Avenue in Luton. Now, if you think there must have been more motivation for him to do this, you'd be wrong. By his own admission and confessions later in the case, he admits he was never bullied or held any grudges towards that school or anybody in it. Rather, it was his familiarity with the layout of the school and his knowledge of the security situation there that made this choice for him. How bizarre.
So there's nothing that
Nope.
drove it. I mean, normally you imagine that there's been some form of abuse or bullying or
A reason.
There's usually a motive.
We have no idea, even now. I mean, he went to jail last year, but we have no idea why he is like this at all.
That's more scary than...
It is.
You know, you hear about some serial killers and things, and they've had a brain injury, they've had a frontal lobe thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason, not a reason, not a justification, but you know, you can find something in their history usually that's been the catalyst of something.
Well, even if you think about terrorism, although nobody agrees with terrorism, these people feel like they have a valid reason.
Yeah.
But he doesn't seem to have had a reason other than he wanted to be.
And he knew the layout of the school.
That's why he chose the school.
Wow.
Once he had done enough to achieve the notoriety that he so desperately wanted, Plan 3 was for Prosper to take his own life, meaning that he never had any intention of taking responsibility or facing any consequences for his actions. Which just makes me think he's a little bitch, to be honest with you. I mean, if you want to have fame for it, stand up and be there to accept the fame. I think it's disgusting. I am in no way condoning this.
But I don't think fame was either
it was. He wanted to be infamous. He wanted, yeah.
So that's it.
Mm-hmm, and notoriety. Why?
Well, not if you go shoot yourself afterwards. You're not going to reap... I was going to say benefits. That's horrible. You know what I mean.
You sow, basically.
You know what I mean.
So Prosper knew that for his plans to unfold the way he wanted them, there were several things he needed to do to make sure every detail was covered. Sadly, had any of these been discovered prior to Friday the 13th of September 2024, maybe things would have turned out differently. But first he had to do his research. He needed to create an overall plan. It was imperative that what he did would earn him the infamy he craved after all. During his research, he accessed a lot of nefarious websites, and it seemed he left a trail of red flags behind him, which, had anyone known to look for him, would have potentially been helpful in stopping him. But maybe now, I guess, if other people see somebody else with the same red flags, maybe it'll do something to stop him. But 2 of these red flags were that he'd been banned from a website dedicated to depicting imagery documenting people taking their own lives, which breaks my heart. He got banned from this for making pro-paedophilic comments on the site. If only anybody around him had the knowledge of this ahead of time, it would have given them a reason to even keep a closer eye on him.
Does nothing feed back to the local police then when that sort of ban is put in place? Because it should. There should be a department that's monitoring that.
No, because the website in itself was doing something that it really shouldn't be doing either.
I suppose, yeah.
Glorifying suicide, I'm pretty sure is...
Yeah, it's not.
While the people, I can only imagine imagine the people that were sharing their last moments weren't trying to glorify anything. They were trying to leave a mark, maybe. The people who run sites like that, I can't.
I mean, the police are expanding their understanding of online abuse, and there's a lot going on at the moment within police services. Yeah, I see what you mean. The website was running something illegal, so they're not gonna. That's horrendous.
After doing all this research, he obviously had to arm himself for a shooting. Now, I need you to remember this case is in the UK. Unlike in some other countries, getting a hold of a gun should be hard to do, especially when the person buying it is under the age of 18. Because we have rules for all this, don't we? I'm going to take you through the process of how we manage this, but please don't consider this as me teaching anyone how to do it. I'm going to give limited details, I won't be sharing website names, and later I will share how somebody in this country is trying to stop this from happening again, and I think we should support them. So all this research had been going on, by the way, for over a year. It's alleged that in 2023 he tried to buy a gun and couldn't do it, so he would have been 16 then. But there's no more information that's saying that he tried and failed. So in April 2024, Prosper joined an online site for buying, selling and trading guns. This site does appear to have been a legitimate one, and to use it you needed to have appropriate licences. Now obviously due to his age, this was a non-starter for Prosper anyway. But just to give you a little bit of possibly extra knowledge, I'm going to tell you what you need to do. To buy a firearm in the UK, you must first be able to prove to your local police force that you're not a threat in any way to public safety, and this applies to everyone. Whether it's an individual or like a group of people trying to set up a new gun club, everybody must apply for and be granted the appropriate licences. If you wish to purchase a shotgun, then the police being happy that you're safe to hold one might be enough. However, if you're looking for a Section 1 firearm, to go on ahead and get a licence, you must be able to prove evidence of why you would need to use a firearm on a regular basis, whether it's for work, for sport, leisure. You have to do that, you have to be able to comply with Home Office guidelines. So a Section 1 firearm is basically things like rifles, handguns and any that require cartridge ammunition. If you're a convicted criminal who's been sentenced to 3 years or more, then too bad, too sad. You're banned from owning a firearm anyway. You're not allowed a firearm or ammunition. Similarly, if there are concerns about a person's mental health, then it's highly likely that they will also be refused a licence, which if you recall, his parents had doubts about his mental...
Concerns.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry, I didn't mean doubts. Now, once you've applied, if the initial stages go well, then you can expect to go through the police vetting procedure, which includes being interviewed, a home visit, a criminal record check, and you'll be expected to provide references.
I'm guessing all this would even apply to police as well.
Everybody has to go through this. Everyone. Although that reminds me of a case, I can't remember. Did I tell you about this one where this guy basically became a police officer, but it turned out he'd lied on his application form. He'd been admitted involuntarily to a psychiatric ward. He said he'd went there voluntarily, but he hadn't. In America, in most states, if you get committed, basically you can't ever have a firearm, but they let him be in the police and gave him a gun.
Wow.
Yeah, I need to look up what case that was. Now, had Prosper been over the age of 18, it's probable that since his parents and the school had grave concerns about his mental health, as I was saying, he probably wouldn't have got a licence in a month of Sundays. And he knew this. So he went down a different route and faked a licence instead. That's not gonna work, I hear you cry.
Well, you would hope not.
His forgery was so good that DCI Kana later said, quote, "It is a fake, but possibly only an expert would know this." i.e. he did a really good job of it. He investigated the design requirements, the signatures needed, watermarks, logos and the materials that he would need to make it a good counterfeit.
Gee whiz.
In April 2024 he made his first attempt at buying a gun, so the same month, using the trading form. However, he failed and came away with nothing. So going forward he built himself a new identity, which included a completely different background and employment status. He managed to agree a deal with a seller on another site, which was also a legitimate one, and forged trust with them by talking about his role as a volunteer within a charity, making him sound like a giving and responsible person. Prosper made an offer of £650 for a shotgun and 100 cartridges and threw in an extra 30 quid for the petrol if the vendor would deliver. There's actually footage of this transaction taking place. This seller, an elderly man, was completely duped. He complied with all the legal requirements of gun trading, including checking ID and licences and reporting the sale to his local police station. Unfortunately, as Prosper and the seller agreed to meet at a time which is considered out of hours, even though the seller did report report to the police the very next morning. Despite the current law saying you have 7 days to do this, it was too late for them to realise that the person buying the gun and ammunition was not a legitimate licence holder, as this change of ownership happened on the day before, Thursday the 12th of September 2024.
So he didn't hang about.
He didn't hang about, but I will say...
I was going to say, is the seller accountable in any way?
No,
but
he followed everything he was supposed to in the current guidelines.
Yeah.
He was completely duped. He had a record of he's sold before, everything had been fine.
And if the police are saying that only an expert would know that that's a fake licence and certificate, and...
Because there is somebody who's trying to change the law on this, I'm going to go into that later on. So when the morning of Friday the 13th of September 2024 arrived, a date which, by the way, was carefully chosen for its superstitious connotations, Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
I was in a car accident on a Friday the 13th.
It's lucky for my dad.
Is it?
Yep.
Why?
He passed his driving test on Friday the 13th. I think he got into the Air Force on Friday the 13th.
Was that
There's
like
a few things.
Horse and cart, did they have? Well, I suppose it's quite a lucky day for me in the sense that I was in a car accident with my mum.
Okay?
Well, the windscreen and everything came out, and I've got a little scar. And in fact, this is actually quite apt. So what happened was I was changing the tape. We were listening to Michael Bolton, who I've just discovered has a brain tumour.
Ah.
Yeah, and I really like, is it Holding Back the Tears or Years? Anyway,
No, that was Simply Red.
Bolton. Oh, okay. I do like Michael Bolton though, I just can't remember what he sings. Sorry, credit there to Mick Hucknall, I guess. No, so what happened was I was changing the tape. We're going back to cassettes here, and had leaned over into the back of the car, landed on my mum who was driving, and we sort of skidded across the road, and then she managed to right herself, and then I still didn't have my seatbelt on. I went to turn round and she hit black ice, and we shot across the road. You've heard this story so many times.
I have.
Bounced over a fence and rolled up and down a hill. And then this amazing group of like guys in a white van. I don't know, now that I think of it, about 4 guys came out the back of a white van.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna, they were really nice to us, whoever they were, and picked up all our stuff. And I remember saying, I've not even read my Fast Forward magazine yet. And when the police picked us up, so then a couple took us to the hospital, and then the police came to get us to take us to the police station where all our stuff was. And from the back of the police van, I just remember going, so have you ever worked on a murder? And then got my denim jacket back, grabbed it, opened the pocket and went, oh, phew. So my £2 change was still in the pocket.
Well, get this though, because we lived in different countries at the time. We used to be pen pals, so we used to write each other letters all the time. Gemma told me about this in a letter, and she told the police officer because they asked you to tell everything.
Uh-huh.
So you even told the policeman what was in your sandwiches. And this is obviously before we knew that you were neurodivergent, and if that wasn't a clue. And she didn't spare one little tiny detail.
I never do. You'll probably get used to that. Victoria's got a box of letters that I sent her. I have nothing because I suck.
No sentimentality, and
I have it now.
I think we've established that I'm a hoarder, so...
I thought you were going to say a whore.
Rude!
You said it, not me. Anyway, so it was Friday the 13th, that's what started all that off. And with the loaded 12-gauge Nico double-barreled shotgun in his possession, Prosper was nearly ready. Believing it would add to his notoriety, he had chosen a bizarre black and yellow costume to wear on the day and added bladed weapons to his arsenal.
Like a bumblebee.
That's what I thought. Why do you want to look like a dick?
Ah.
He had no doubt that his plan would go exactly how he wanted to. However, this was incorrect. At approximately 4:35 a.m, Prosper used the weapon, firing into a stuffed teddy bear, probably to check it was working the way it should, and I'm guessing he thought that this was a great idea. But this was the beginning of his eventual undoing. Around 4:45, Juliana, who had woken earlier than usual, perhaps she was disturbed in slumber by that shot, entered her son's room and found him with the shotgun. Confronted with the image of her son with a weapon, Juliana knew something was really wrong. What the hell do you do in that situation? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is how she would have been.
Yeah.
Your heart would be in your throat, your stomach would be on the floor. It's believed that as she pleaded with him to hand over his weapon, Prosper became angry. She was making a lot of noise, and this has had the potential to wake his siblings, Kyle and Giselle, ruining the plan he had of killing them in their sleep, because again, he was a little bitch. He believed if he did this quickly, one of them after the other, then he wouldn't draw attention to himself and what he was doing, because remember, he was in a block of flats.
Yeah.
Chillingly, it's later determined that Prosper had also planned to sexually assault his sister after he killed her.
Why?
Well, remember I mentioned earlier that he'd been banned from a website for pro-paedophilic comments? Well, this wasn't the only time he'd been vocal about his positive feelings regarding relationships between adults and children. On the dark web, he was open about, and I'm sorry, I know this is difficult to hear. I don't go too much into it though. He was open about his attraction for children, and it's alleged that he believed he was in a relationship with the child character Clementine, or Clementine, from the computer game version of The Walking Dead. So she starts off as a young girl and you kind of go through with her from what I can make out. In the aftermath of his act of familicide, police officers also found indecent images of children on his phone, and a video he made declaring himself a follower of Clementine on an online forum. And in this video he also made threats against Giselle based on a choice she had made on the same game that he disagreed with. They say that this has got nothing to do with why he killed Giselle, but his mother's intervention so early in the morning put paid to this, and he attacked her with a knife and then shot her in the head at close range, leaving her on the hall floor where she fell. He lost control. He had this tight plan, but the killings weren't meant to start until hours later. Juliana had put up one hell of a fight that he hadn't planned for or expected. Her poor hands and arms were covered in slash marks. I'm just going to pause to give an extra warning here, and while I don't go into too much detail, what happens next might be triggering, so please proceed with caution, and this is the bit that I might put in Spotify where to come back in and listen to. Unfortunately, Victoria has to listen to it, but it's honestly, I've admitted a lot. Later, he would angrily admit that his mother had, quote, messed it all up, and she was a stupid cow, and I've taken out the curse words he used because I don't think they were needed. Giselle woke next and came out of her room confused. This confusion turned to terror when she saw her big brother. Your big brother, the one that you're supposed to rely on, that's going to have your back, that's going to beat up partners in the future if they step out of line.
Yeah. Supposed to be a protector.
Yeah. She ran to hide under the family dining table but was dragged out, stabbed repeatedly, and then shot to death. By this point, Kyle was awake and begging for his life. He had made his way to the kitchen to find a knife to defend himself again against his older brother, who he'd grown up with.
Who he probably looked up to.
Probably. On a mission, Prosper stabbed and slashed at his brother over 100 times, before shooting Kyle when, despite a punctured lung, he'd made it to the hallway in a bid to escape. Prosper had used 7 of the bullets, or cartridges, I'm not sure how it works, he was armed with, and within 30 minutes, his whole household was dead. Meanwhile, at around 5:20, one of the neighbours had reached the end of their rope and had stormed up to the flat to complain about the noises they'd been hearing for the last 20 minutes. Banging on the door, this witness claimed she could hear, quote, banging and ruffling, and the sound of someone groaning from the hallway, probably Kyle. Fearfully, she ran back down to her own flat and called 999. Which was a very good move, because if he had opened that door... She would have been... It's a she. I think it's the lady that I mentioned at the beginning, but there was a couple of people that it could have been. But yeah, but she feels guilt to this day that she didn't do something sooner, and it's not her guilt to hold.
Absolutely not.
Panicked by the knocking on the door, maybe, Prosper quickly placed a copy of a novel called How to Kill Your Family on his mother's body. Then waited a minute or two until he was sure the coast was clear, and he made his escape at the same time the first call was made to 999 at 5:29am. On CCTV footage, we can see that Prosper left the flat at 5:33am, while the police entered at 6:08am. The scene these officers walked into really doesn't bear thinking about. Suffice to say, they found Juliana, Kyle and Giselle, as well as a lot of mess and various bloody knives. I've cut it all out. I don't think it needs to be shared here, but if you want to read it, it'll be in the sources. I think people often forget or don't consider what police officers must see in these cases, and they really are. We talk a lot about secondary victims, third-party victims of crime, and it must have been horrific.
The emergency services certainly fall into that category, and I hope that they get the support that they
need.
There's also prison officers.
Yeah.
They have to read a lot of details about
to know what they're dealing
about they don't call them prisoners anymore, but I can't remember what they call them, the inmates anyway. They have to read a lot of details, and the prison service actually has one of the highest suicide rates.
I was going to say about PTSD, but I hadn't thought, yeah.
Suicide, yeah. Needless to say, there is more support needed. More mental health in this country is, there's more support needed throughout. So,
well, maybe
and you don't necessarily think of police and people and emergency workers who have to see what they see, because people say, well, they get paid, it's their job.
Nobody gets paid enough to see what they must see.
No.
Not only panicked by the realisation that he may get caught fairly soon, Prosper's plans were thrown into complete turmoil at this point. At 5:30 in the morning, although it was far too early as no one would be there yet, he was heading to his old junior school, the St. Joseph's Catholic Primary School, dressed in the inconspicuous outfit he'd chosen. I really hope you can hear the sarcasm there. If you remember, he was wearing a bright yellow and black bee-esque costume. Just nuts. And I think in that episode of Friends where Rachel hits Ben's head and then she rips the head off the teddy bear and puts the hat on? The hat looks like that. You'll have to look it up. It's bonkers bizarre.
That was like a
rain hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he's got on his head.
Okay.
He was also carrying a large bag holding the reloaded shotgun and 33 cartridges. Now, on his walk, he clearly noticed that there was a higher than usual presence of police. So he came to the realisation that, he can't yet head to the primary school, so instead he headed to a nearby wooded area and hid there for the next 2 hours. Whilst in the wood, at 6:22 a.m, Prosper shared the video I told you about earlier regarding Clementine, The Walking Dead and Giselle to a website called Mega, before getting rid of 2 mobile phones that contained messages with a group that he was in with some other paedophiles on X. Hopefully, since police know about these phones, they've been found and those beasts have been rounded up too. Just an FYI, I really cautiously, given the nature of what Prosper was known to looked at what the website Mega was, and it turns out it's an app based out of Auckland, New Zealand, and is owned by a company in Hong Kong, and it's called Cloud Tech Services Limited. It's essentially a file sharing platform which can hold bigger files, can host meetings, etc., that offers users total control and privacy. So it just makes me think that it's a breeding ground for predators, to be honest with you. I didn't go further than reading that. I didn't want to look at anything else. This case was quite hard to research because there was things that I didn't want to put in because I don't want to see anything.
No, exactly. You've got to be so careful with what you search for. I remember when my son was little and he was obsessed with Toy Story, and my brother Googled a 12-inch Woody because he wanted to buy him the toy.
Oh, Paul.
I know. Don't.
Still made a purchase from that first website though, didn't he?
Don't Google 12-inch Woody.
Anyway, during the time he was hiding, he also dumped the bag with the gun and ammunition near a playing field. We don't know why, but it was part of his movements, and I'm speculating he knew he was going to get caught and he didn't want to be armed because he thought he would get a higher sentence, maybe. The next bit was a little bit confusing, but I'll explain it as best I can and how I think it was. So after emerging from the woods at around 7:55 a.m, Prosper began walking down Bramington Road towards a police car. He says that he flagged the car down as he wanted to turn himself in, but other sources state that the police had begun watching him as they noticed he was behaving strangely and noticed the blood, but he was also dressed as a bee. Anyway, remember, they were actively looking for somebody who had murdered 3 people. So either way, Prosper was arrested and taken into custody in the police car and taken back to the station. And in sources, it says that he repeatedly stated, "It is not murder," which clearly it was. What was it then? Did he think he was in a game?
I bloody hope not. But a frenzied attack where you've stabbed your brother 100 times.
And you were planning to then go and kill kids. More children, because his siblings
were children.
So although he managed to complete part 1 of his crime, part 2 was foiled by his mother when she walked into his room that morning, meaning he began to act out his heinous plans earlier than intended. In the sentencing remarks of Prosper's subsequent case, Mrs. Justice Chima Grubb vocalised that the untimely death of Juliana Falcon, aged 48, Kyle Prosper, aged 16, and 14-year-old Giselle were, quote, almost certain to have saved the lives of many children. If he had been able to do this the way he wanted to do it, nobody would have been ready to stop him. Nobody would have known. Due to the already lengthy nature of this episode, I'm not going to go into full details of the arrest and court proceedings, but if you want me to, I may record a bonus episode later. We might attach a poll to the episode because we've never done that, so you can say yes or no if you want.
Poll?
A poll?
A poll?
Yeah.
Poll? Yeah.
No, a poll. Polling stations. Poll.
Pole. It's just I'm imagining a pole. Like,
Oh, I love it when she says things in a different way. And the listeners really like it too.
oh yes.
Finecti?
Oh, it's spelt Findocti or something.
Findocti.
Findocti.
Back at the station, Prosper was charged with 3 counts of murder: purchasing or acquiring a shotgun without a certificate, possession of a shotgun, and possession of a bladed article in a public place.
Which would have been enough to hold him before they needed any other.
Yeah. Indecent images were also found on his mobile device, but due to the nature of the other charges being of a, quote, higher severity, no charges for these were taken further, which I think is BS. I 100% think we don't see things like this. Lawmakers don't see child abuse as a big deal.
It's not even just that, it's just the system where if they've committed multiple crimes and one of the charges is more likely to get a result with the CPS, then that is what they go.
Oh, I totally get that.
But it winds me up that things can be disregarded because
now that's not on his file.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
So in the long term, but sometimes they do keep charges on file. Hopefully he will never be released, but if he were to be, how can they disregard those things because he committed worse crimes at the time?
It should all be lumped in there. I'm sorry, but it should be one big charge.
Yeah.
It should be noted that the elderly man who sold the ammunition and gun was not charged, as police believe that based on his spotless record when selling firearms thus far, and because the ID and certificate shown to him was such a good fake, that he sold to Prosper in good conscience.
I think he's also a third-party victim.
3 days after he was charged, Prosper appeared in court to have his trial date set. We're about to meet another third-party victim. During this, his father is alleged to have shouted, "I still love you, son, it's not your fault, okay," and burst into tears. Now, I can't speak for him or why he shouted this out, but I can guarantee he was hurting a lot more than Prosper was or ever will. Maybe he believes his son was not in his right mind when committing the crimes or something like that, but though a clinical psychiatrist who evaluated him whilst he was awaiting his trial diagnosed him with ASD, ASD, what did I say?
ASD? What's ASD? Sorry.
Autism spectrum disorder.
Oh, okay, thank you.
This doesn't support anything that he did. People with autism are no more likely to be violent than a neurotypical person. He also noticed that Prosper showed no signs of either empathy or remorse and showed worrying psychotic traits.
The thing is, as a parent, it may just be that he actually feels some kind of guilt or like he's let them down in some way so that he's somehow responsible. It's not the case.
It's got to be really difficult though if one of your children is responsible for the death of your other children. He must be PTSD.
That will torment him for the rest of his days, but it isn't his fault.
No, it's not. The only person whose fault it is Prosper. Whether there's a reason for it or not, it's him.
Yeah.
In fact, in writings and conversations with a nurse after his arrest and numerous people he spoke to whilst in prison, he said the only regret he had was not being able to kill more people.
Ugh.
His trial was originally scheduled for the 5th of December 2024, but then rearranged and went ahead on the 24th of February 2025. After being found guilty on the 3 counts of murder, Prosper was sentenced to a minimum of 49 years in prison on the 19th of March 2025. This was appealed via the Attorney General the next day under the unduly lenient sentence scheme, with the Conservative Shadow Justice Minister, Kieran Mullins, saying, quote, "What exactly does someone have to do in this country to be sent away for life? This was the most serious of crimes, including the murder of 2 children." Now, interestingly, I found out that any member of the public can ask for a review on a case sentence where they feel the sentence is not enough as long as they act within 28 days of the original sentence being passed.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So you don't need to have any legal background or anything, you can do this. But I'd be really interested to find out what people think.
And if they'd done it. I'd be interested to know if anyone's done it on any cases.
Oh, you could look into that and give us a little update. John Tizard, the Bedfordshire Police and Crime Commissioner, came out in support of the sentencing judge and said the sentence she handed down to Prosper was correct. Now, speaking of John Tizard, since this massacre, he has called for new laws regarding the selling and trading of guns and ammunition, I mentioned earlier. In March of this year, he put forward his proposal in a letter to the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, and I'm going to read it in its entirety as it was printed in the Mirror newspaper on the 19th of March 2025. Now, I mentioned the name Yvette Cooper the other day to a certain somebody, and he said, "Did you know she's married to Ed Balls?" And I said, "I'm not going to say it." So if you just think of her name and her new surname, what would her name be?
Yvette Balls.
Have you? Right, quote.
Plums.
This is quite long, okay?
Yep.
I took this from the Mirror, as I said. "I believe that new legislation is needed to ensure public safety and to restore confidence in firearms licensing policy and processes when firearms are sold or exchanged. I believe that one viable option would be for anyone wishing to purchase a firearm to provide documented confirmation from the police service that they have a legitimate entitlement to own a firearm, as well as proof of identity to the vendor." So basically, you would have to go to the police, explain you wanted to buy a gun. If they thought you were fit, they'd have to produce a document, which they would then give to the vendor. Under the current law, sellers have to notify police within 7 days about the sale of a weapon, but they don't have to check with the police whether the buyer's firearm certificate is genuine before this purchase, which creates a loophole whereby the new owner has a window to carry out an attack before the fake is discovered. This confirmation needs to be shared by the police with the vendor ahead of sale and exchange. It is clear to me that there should be a national database of firearm licence holders, which I thought we already must have.
Is there not?
Well, if you get a licence, why is it not on a database?
I can't believe that.
Well, I'm just going by what John Tizard's put, so I'm assuming he's checked.
Oh, don't you love a spreadsheet in a database, people? Come on.
I would do that. I would do the data input, and I love a bit of data input.
Yeah, me too.
Or the ability of police services to be able to interrogate each other's databases. My request to you is for the sale and exchange of firearms to be reviewed as a matter of urgency and for new regulations to be introduced. I hope this might be addressed quickly by secondary legislation, and should primary legislation be required, that this could be included in the current crime and policing bill. I'm going to keep an eye on whether this happens. I don't know if there's somewhere we can all say, if you agree with this, obviously, that we can all say, yep, and sign a petition or what, but I would really like to see this
I mean, you could
happening.
start a petition if there's not one already. We could potentially...
Yeah, we could. So, before I finish this episode, and I've got a very particular way I'd like to do it this week, Victoria, have you got anything that you would like to say based on the case?
It's very, very interesting, the stuff that you've come out with about guns and licenses, and I didn't, because you don't consider it so much in this country, do you, to be a threat? But I guess it's one of those things that is on the rise, unfortunately. Hopefully, if we can get a petition started, or if we can, well, who was it?
John Tizard for Bedfordshire
PCC.
Yeah.
Bedfordshire Police and Crime Commissioner.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we can support them in any way, that would be good.
I mean,
we'll look into it and
hope that they include Scotland.
That's another issue, isn't it? I wonder if there are different rules in place in Scotland already.
Oh yeah, we could look into that, couldn't we? Because I know a lot of changes were made after Dunblane.
As for this special B, what?
Check out, everybody, if you want to check out the references and weigh in and let us know what you think.
I think you should. I don't think you can just consider what he's done either. You have to consider the plans he made.
Of course you do. Although it's a little bit is it Minority Report with Tom Cruise, where they're trying to stop crimes ahead of them happening, which takes away the possibility that somebody might change. But he made the plans, he set out to do them, and I wonder why. I know that police were everywhere, but it's like he just gave up, which thank God he gave up, but could he not have gave up the idea before? How did he see his mum and still go ahead and do it?
Yeah, that's his mum. Not just that, it sounds like it escalated with his brother and sister.
It escalated with his mum as well, because he was going to just shoot them all while they slept.
And he stabbed. And
so what did he have the knives for in the first place? So I'd primarily like to dedicate this episode to Juliana, Kyle and Giselle and their friends and family, but I'd like to close out the episode by also remembering the names of the victim of both Dunblane and Sandy Hook. We're thinking of them and their family too. So in a minute, I'm going to ask Victoria to read some of these out as well. But for now, I'd like to say thank you for listening.
Yeah, that was a difficult one, but it's very interesting, very current. Things can be learnt from it, I think, definitely.
Always trust your gut as a parent. And if you think there's issues, don't just accept no. I think he wouldn't go to get help, but maybe it should be more accessible for parents to learn what they can be doing.
I think a lot of people are put off, especially with mental health services, by there being a waiting list, which is an unfortunate aspect of it. But there is help there, and if you persevere, I know it's another thing that you have to think about it, and it's traumatizing having to wait. And there normally is a triage system, but just persevere, keep at it, get your family the help, get the help.
We will be back on the 15th of June, which is our mid-birthday schedule. So we might have something special arranged. Victoria and I are very, very close in age. And
I'm younger.
No, you're older.
Oh, yeah, I'm older.
You do this every year. Every year, and I say to you, no, I'm 2 days after you. So, and it will be one of Victoria's episodes coming.
See, that's my age showing there just by forgetting that I'm older.
Yeah. Oh, can I just tell, the other day she said to me, oh, I think I'm like losing my mind. And then she started telling me a story and she was like, and your mum was saying to the shopkeeper, blah, blah, blah. And I said, what shopkeeper? And she went, in the bra shop. And I said, what are you talking about? And she went, I'm telling you about the woman that tried to measure me for a bra when I was younger in the middle of a shop. I said, you never told me any of that part of the story. And she said, oh.
Yeah, I started at the beginning and went straight to the end and left out the whole middle part.
She did, and I laughed and laughed. So anyway, we'd like to say bye for now, and in a minute we will start going through the names. So bye!
Keep on trucking. I'm not going to do that every time.
Do that every episode.
I know, that's ridiculous. Bye, people.
Gone but not forgotten. The Dunblane victims. Victoria Elizabeth Clydesdale, aged 5. Emma Elizabeth Crozier, aged 5. Melissa Helen Curry, age 5. Charlotte Louise Dunn, age 5. Kevin Allen Hassel, age 5. Ross William Irvin, age 5. David Charles Kerr, age 5. Mary Elizabeth McBeath, age 5. Gwen Mayer, age 45, their teacher. Brett McKinnon, age 6. Abigail Joanne McLennan, age 5. Emily Morton, age 5. Sophie Jane Lockwood North, age 5. John Petrie, age 5. Joanna Caroline Ross, age 5. Hannah Louise Scott, age 5. Megan Turner, age 5.
Sandy Hook victims. Nancy Lanza, 52, shot at home. Rachel Diavino, 29, behaviour therapist. Dawn Hochsprung, 47, principal. Anne-Marie Murphy, 52, special education teacher. Lauren Russo, 30, teacher. Mary Sherlock, 56, school psychologist. Victoria Lee Soto, 27, teacher. And the students: Charlotte Bacon, age 6. Daniel Barden, age 7. Olivia Engel, age 6. Josephine Gay, aged 7. Dylan Hockley, age 6. Madeline Sue, sorry if I've pronounced that wrong, age 6. Catherine Hubbard, age 6. Chase Kowalski, age 7. Jessie Lewis, age 6. Anne Marquez Green, age 6. James Mattioli, age 6. Grace MacDonald, age 7. Emily Parker, age 6. Jack Pinto, age 6. Noah Posner, age 6. Caroline Previdi, age 6. Jessica Ricos, age 6. Aviel Richman, age 6. Benjamin Wheeler, age 6. And Alison Wyatt, aged 6.